to have this grant pool and to allow local school systems and local law enforcement to work together to bring in veterans and retired law enforcement to serve as a security officer at a school. They know how to use weapons. They know how to de-escalate situations. I've talked to a lot of them. They like this idea. They are grandparents like we are. My husband and I are grandparents, and they want to be there to help protect children.
That was Senator Marsha Blackburn, and you heard her correctly. She is advocating for arming grandparents to mitigate the number of deaths that occur in the endless mass shootings we experience in this country. She also seems to forget that there have been a lot of mass shootings where armed guards and armed resource officers are present, and the mass shooter is still able to gun down and kill many people anyway. In fact, Uvalde is a perfect example where there's an endless supply of law enforcement from various different departments there, and it takes them an incredibly long time to even act. So if the idea here is, no, we just need to respond to armed mass shooters with more armed people, that hasn't worked. So what are you talking about? And why are we gonna put the onus on grandparents to save these kids? I just want to live somewhere else, but I don't know where. I just don't know where. Every place has its issues, and there's nowhere to go. There's no place for refuge. It's insane.
Yeah, I think the issue with your example is that in Uvalde, you had a couple hundred trained cops. What you needed was Grandpa Joe. Then they would have been able to stop. It's the stupidest idea. No, it's not the stupidest idea. I think the not having side doors to buildings anymore is stupider. But look, if she actually talked to grandparents and they want to stand between second graders and a rampaging maniac with an AR-15, then that is brave of them. It also implies, I'm not gonna speak for every one of these grandparents, that they want to stand between the kids and the maniac, which requires that they want the maniac to still be able to get the gun.
Exactly.
They're willing to engage in assault rifle combat before they're willing to just not have the fight happen in the first place. They would rather potentially have their own head blown off than have it so that the next mass shooter can't buy the weapon that will blow their head off. You could just not have this at all. We could join the community of nations around the world that does not routinely have to deal with this. That's a different way to go.
We keep experiencing mass shootings where there are good guys with guns on the scene, and it does nothing to stop the insane number of people who die in this country as a result of these mass shootings, but they keep making the same talking points anyway. It's just insanity, it's total insanity, and it makes it impossible to ever engage in discourse in this country that actually leads to something substantive. Now, we're gonna explain why that is in just a moment, and it has something to do with Marsha Blackburn's donors, of course. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about Marsha Blackburn accusing the Biden administration of being hypocrites, because her claim here is, the Biden administration, the White House, they've got a ton of security, right? And yet, the Biden administration and Democrats are not supportive of proposals that I'm putting out there. So what is her proposal? Let's talk about that a little bit. So it's called the Safe Schools Act, and it would appropriate $900 million to be distributed to private and public schools. The funding would be used to train veterans. You mean veterans who aren't even getting the proper mental health care they need as they're suffering from PTSD as a result of the multiple deployments that they experience in the Middle East? Is that those veterans? Okay, great. Let's continue. Or former law enforcement officers to become school safety officers. Schools could also use the funding to purchase metal detectors, X-ray machines, bulletproof glass, and other pretty insane measures, because why wouldn't we want to make our schools feel like you're in the airport? I mean, Are we gonna fondle the kids too as they're walking through the metal detectors? Let's watch Marsha Blackburn and McEnany talk about this.
I seem to remember a lot of security each time that I walked into the White House for work. Armed Secret Service, dogs, metal detectors. In fact, there's an armed Secret Service officer just steps away from the press secretary's office. I would know, I sat there. But that's the place where Karine Jean-Pierre works. It's impenetrable. What possible reason could you have for not protecting our children, our true diamonds? Joining me now is Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn. What is your dealings with President Biden and why would he reject this?
It is just unseemly that there would be such a rejection of this by the Democrats. Everybody should be for the Safe School Act, Kayleigh. They should want to do this tomorrow, as you were saying, to keep our children safe. This is something I have worked on since 2018. Tried to get it passed then, tried to get it passed last year after the Uvalde shootings.
So why is it that Marsha Blackburn wants to arm veterans and retired police officers to allegedly protect our kids when, again, I'm gonna repeat for the billionth time, there are endless examples of good guys with guns on the scene who were unable to stop the bad guy with the gun who carries out the mass shooting? Well, it could have something to do with the fact that Marsha Blackburn knows who butters her bread. Okay, so let's take a look at Open Secrets and what they have reported in regard to her campaign contributions. Oh, would you look at that? A lot of money coming in from gun manufacturing. A lot of money coming in from these organizations.
Wow.
So we can see just how much money gun rights and gun manufacturing organizations spend on lobbying overall compared to gun control organizations. Okay, so this isn't just about Marsha Blackburn. This is spending by the gun lobby in general. So in 2022, when it comes to gun control, it's only like $1.77 million, right? But you look at the gun manufacturers and gun rights activists, it's a lot more money.
Yeah.
So $8.5 million from gun rights lobbyists, 2.3 from gun manufacturing lobbying, and that's in 2022 alone, and the list goes on and on. It's the money, it's the money. Gun rights interests gave more than $75.1 million to federal candidates, parties, and outside spending groups from 1989 through the third quarter of 2022, with 90% of the funds contributed to candidates and parties going to Republicans. The NRA is consistently the top contributing organization among gun rights groups. So this isn't surprising. They just do what their donors want them to do, including embarrassing themselves on national TV by regurgitating talking points that make no sense given what we've experienced with mass shootings in this country.
Yep, 100%. And they don't, the fact that it doesn't make sense doesn't matter. Like you can continually point out that schools are gun-free zones in other countries, doesn't result in the kids constantly being gunned down. Like it doesn't matter. You can point out all this stuff, doesn't matter. We're gonna solve all of our problems by leaving the guns alone. They're the best things ever. They're more important than you. They're more important than the diamonds that are our children. You just gotta get Grandpa. Grandpa Joe's gonna stand in front of the building and that'll save us. Or more likely, Grandpa Joe will get shot first. I personally see this bill as the shoot Grandpa first bill. That's what it is. You shoot the grandpa and then you massacre through the school. That's what it's going to be. Because Grandpa has to defend an entire building, whereas the terrorist can watch it for a few days and figure out where Grandpa stands. That's pretty much how this works. In all of these cases, you just have to ask, what is the most you're willing to do to stop this from happening? And Marsha Blackburn, Kayleigh McEnany have a line. Oh, these children they're precious, they're diamonds, but they will not stop people from buying these guns.
Yeah,
they're perfectly comfortable with the next psycho being able to waltz into a store, plop down $750, probably on credit, and buy a weapon that can kill an entire classroom of third graders. They will not stop that.
I mean, as long as the gun lobby is bribing them. I am very curious.
I don't even think that's necessary. I think that was necessary. I don't think it's necessary anymore. I think it is just such a core political topic for the right that they have to say you have a right to these weapons. Even if they were making no money whatsoever. I think that if they say, you know what, AR-15s are too much, you can't have them, or even you have to wait until you're 21, I think they will be beat in the next primary by a Republican who will say the opposite. I could be wrong, we disagree, but that's.
I mean, it's interesting. I am curious to see how that would play out because you look at the polling. I mean, Fox News just did a poll that showed the vast majority of Americans, and I'm not talking about like, 55% of Americans. I'm talking about in the
70s,
70s and 80s, they want common sense gun legislation. In fact, one of the questions in that Fox News poll was, like basically, how do you want to respond to the mass shootings? Do you want more people to be armed with firearms? Only 45% of respondents said yes. So they are going against the will of their own voters in pushing for loosening gun laws.
But not necessarily the primary voters in some of these areas, which are skewed. Look, I'm sure it's a mix of a lot of different things. The fact that they'd be attacked by right-wing media, the fact, like there's a lot of different things, but I just don't think, considering the huge amounts of money that they bring in, Marsha Blackburn getting $200,000 a cycle, I don't think is singularly enough for her to hold this position. Is all. It could be a contributing factor. Anyway, the end result is that they're fine with people being able to buy these guns and mow down kids.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.